also available from TrueTieDye.com. Tie-Dye 101, the basics of making exceptional tie-dye. Tie-Dye 101 eliminates the guesswork and teaches you everything you need to know to start making vibrant, color-fast tie-dye of your own. Learn the secrets that make great tie-dye and useful tips for making the process easier, safer, and more fun. Tie-Dye 101, the first step to putting your imagination on fabric.
Hi, I'm Tom.
And I'm Martine. Welcome to Tie-Dye 303, all about mandalas, suns, and lotus blossoms. You're about to see a series of techniques we arrived at through countless hours of experimentation. And once you've learned them, you'll be well on your way to making amazing, breathtaking tie-dyed creations of your own.
We'll show variations of some of our designs on cotton t-shirts. However, the intricate folds we're going to show you are easier to master on thinner fabrics. Most of our demonstrations use tapestries made from rayon sheeting, which is relatively inexpensive, dyes brilliantly, and is capable of producing highly detailed designs.
You can also obtain sample swatches from your fabric supplier to assist you in choosing a fabric to dye. We recommend that you wash rayon and other delicate fabrics in a mesh bag to prevent them from being damaged in the washing machine.
We're going to skip right to folding and dyeing our projects. If you missed Tie-Dye 101, or if you need to brush up on safety, properly mixing chemicals and dye, what kinds of fabrics you can use, troubleshooting, and where to obtain supplies, be sure to watch our comprehensive review at the end of this video. Now, let's get started. First, let's learn to fold an 8-pointed mandala. Then we'll demonstrate dyeing our seasons, Sonoran Spring, and Dark Star designs.
Fold your damp, pre-washed fabric in half down the center. Then fold it in half again. Lay the quartered fabric flat and smooth the creases. Flip the top 2 layers over, forming a diagonal crease. Flip the fabric over and fold the remaining 2 layers of the fabric to mirror the other side. Use a washable marker to draw crescent-shaped lines between the creases, working outward from the pointed folded center. Space these guidelines several inches apart. Fold on the line nearest the center first. Tie directly on this line and make the tie tight so the fabric compresses under it. Here's what the folded, tied center should look like. Pinch the next crescent marker line into a series of small, even height folds, so the shorter line formed across the tops of these folds is straight or nearly straight. Then tie on the folded line. Compress and tie loose areas between your ties.
Repeat this procedure as you work outward, compressing the fabric beneath your ties. Leave adequate tails on your knots so they won't slip out should they loosen slightly. Notice that you can complete each tie prior to cutting the artificial sinew from the roll. Tying in this manner saves time and sinew. Handling both sides of the fabric as it is folded keeps the layers from separating. We want to keep individual layers together in order to maintain symmetry in our pattern. Don't take your eyes off the scissors. Hold the sinew so your fingertips never get too near, and take care not to nip your fabric. Here's what a tied 8-pointed mandala should look like. Let's take one more look at the process of marking, folding, and tying an 8-pointed mandala. Soak the tied mandala in soda ash solution for at least 15 minutes. Squeeze out excess soda ash solution and set the mandala out to dry. It can take several days for an item tied in this manner to dry, so plan ahead.
To dye our projects, we're going to start with concentrated solutions of yellow, fuchsia, turquoise, cobalt, and black, mixed using Procyon MX dye powders and a solution of water, urea, water softener, and kelp. We'll mix these colors together to create more colors and dilute them to lighter shades using softened water. For the projects in this video, you'll want to mix red, orange, and golden yellow using various proportions of yellow and fuchsia. Make dark red by adding black to some of your red. You'll need a forest green mixed from yellow, turquoise, and cobalt, and an avocado green mixed from yellow and relatively smaller amounts of turquoise and cobalt. Mix 2 more greens and make strong dilutions of these by adding about 2/3 softened water. Make a medium strength dilution of one of these greens and a weak dilution from the other. Mix a purple or 2 you like by combining various proportions of turquoise and or cobalt to fuchsia. Make a strong dilution and a weak dilution of your purple. Make a blue you like by mixing various proportions of turquoise and cobalt with much smaller amounts of fuchsia. Also make 2 dilutions of turquoise, 1 medium strength or strong, and 1 weak. Our strong, weak, and medium strength color dilutions just need to be easily distinguishable from one another and the dye concentrates. colors always appear darker in the bottle than on the finished project, so adjust the concentrations of your solutions accordingly. You can also buy powdered Procyon MX dyes in an astounding range of colors and mix concentrates, dilutions, and intermediate shades from them.
Now we'll dye the Seasons tapestry. Apply red to the tied center of the dried soda ash infused mandala. Apply orange next to the red and yellow next to the orange. Apply turquoise next to the yellow and purple next to the turquoise. Repeat the color progression, starting over with red. Apply enough dye to penetrate the 8 layers of fabric contained in each of your folds. The absorptive nature of the dry fabric is what makes it possible for the dye to consistently penetrate fabric tied in this manner. Cover the rest of the first side using the same color sequence, so colors appear next to one another in the same order they appear in the spectrum. The dyes mingle and form more colors directly on the fabric, most notably the green which forms at the intersection of yellow and turquoise. This is also a good reason to make light-colored areas such as yellow wide enough that they won't be lost as the dyes spread. Augment each red stripe with a narrower stripe of dark red, then flip the project over. Apply dilute turquoise, avocado green, cobalt blue, weak dilute purple, strong dilute purple, yellow, and dark red.
Rather than repeat this sequence, apply more colors in a new order. As you decide what color to apply next, consider how it will look next to its neighbors on both sides of the project. For this project, we'll also avoid applying the same color to corresponding locations on both sides. Dyeing each side of the project using different color combinations reveals the relationships between the folds we made in the fabric, producing complex, alternating patterns. Countless variations can be produced by changing the order and relative amounts of colors applied. As you cover your project, remember to apply enough dye to penetrate the many layers of fabric. When you're finished applying dye, cover the project to keep it moist while the dye reacts with the fabric. Here's what our finished Seasons tapestry will look like after the washout.
Next we'll create the Sonoran Spring. Start with a dried, soda ash infused mandala. Apply the same palette of colors we used for the Seasons tapestry, this time in a new order. Invent your color combination by deciding on the color you want in the center and working outward, picking each subsequent color based on how you think it will accentuate, complement, or contrast its neighbors. Try to not repeat your first color sequence. Instead, use a new combination. Further accentuate your folded crescent lines by also applying the stripes of color in a crescent shape. Flip the project over and apply a different color combination. Try using mainly concentrates and dilutions of purples and greens on this side. Remember, it's not important for your colors to match ours. Just apply the principles we've shown you, and your project will turn out great. Set the project aside to react. Here's what our finished Sonoran spring tapestry will look like.
Now let's take a look at dyeing the dark star. Notice how this 8-pointed mandala has steeper angles and sharper points than our previous projects. The difference lies in how we apply the dye. Our dyed mandala has been soaked in soda ash solution and dried. Apply red, orange, yellow, a strong dilute green, forest green, turquoise, dilute purple, purple, cobalt blue, and purple. Repeat this combination, or variations of it, until the first side of the project is covered with dye. Applying the stripes of color in exaggerated crescents allows us to create angles and points in our dyed project which are sharper than what we can actually fold. Flip the project over. Apply colors in the same order as the first side, so they appear in corresponding locations on both sides of the dyed mandala. Be sure to apply enough dye to penetrate the many layers of fabric. Set the project aside to react and give the dye time to bond with the fabric. Here's what the finished dark star tapestry will look like.
Let's take a look at some examples of 8-pointed mandalas created by applying different color combinations.
Next, we'll learn to fold a 16-pointed mandala, and we'll dye a couple of variations: the tides and Pangea. Fold your damp, pre-washed fabric in half, and then into quarters. Smooth the creases and fold the fabric into eighths, just as we did for our 8-pointed mandalas. Fold the top set of layers over so it forms 16ths. Pinch along the newly formed crease and flip the fabric over, folding the remaining layers into 1/16 on top of the other side. Smooth out wrinkles and align and straighten the creases. The fabric is now properly folded into 1/16. Using a washable marker, draw steep arches or V's between creases so their apexes point toward the center. Starting near the center, fold along each guideline so the shorter line formed across the tops of the folds is straight or nearly straight. Tie on each folded guideline and in the loose areas between them. Your ties must be tight enough to compress the fabric. Remember to keep the layers of fabric from separating as you fold them. Here is what a folded, tied, 16-pointed mandala should look like. Let's take another quick look at the process of marking, folding, and tying a 16-pointed mandala. Soak the tied mandala in soda ash solution for at least 15 minutes. Squeeze out excess soda ash solution and set the mandala out to dry.
Now we'll create the tides tapestry. Apply turquoise to the center of the dried, soda ash infused mandala. Then apply cobalt, forest green, avocado green, or another green you like, weak dilute purple, and strong dilute purple. Cover the rest of the first side, using these same colors, but rearranging their order. When deciding where to place colors, you don't always have to work from the center, or in any particular order. Apply enough dye to penetrate all 16 layers of fabric in each tied fold. Flip the project over and dye the other side to match the first side, so colors appear in corresponding locations on both sides. We'll stick to this color application strategy for now, because the fabric is folded into so many layers. These extra layers make it more difficult to produce consistent alternating patterns such as we did for the Seasons and Sonoran Spring 8-pointed mandala tapestries. cover the dyed project and set it aside to react. Here's what our finished Tides tapestry will look like.
Now let's take a look at dyeing the Pangea. The Tide 16-pointed mandala has been soaked in soda ash solution and allowed to dry. Apply dilute turquoise, blue, dilute purple, red, black, avocado or other bright green, and forest green or a similar contrasting dark green. Repeat this color progression, again applying the dye in arch or V-shaped stripes. To make the tapestry more interesting, you can make the stripes of color different widths. You can also make changes to your color sequence, excluding certain colors so they only appear in one or two places. Flip the project over and apply the dyes so matching colors appear in corresponding locations on both sides. Set the dyed project aside to react. Here's what our Pangea tapestry will look like after it's been washed out.
Here are examples of more 16-pointed mandalas you can make by changing the colors you apply, the shapes of the stripes you apply them in, and the number of times the fabric is tied. Now let's fold a sun mandala, which contains some defined shapes. We'll dye a variation we call the purple sun.
We're going to demonstrate folding and dyeing a sun mandala on a large piece of relatively heavy cotton canvas. Cotton canvas is durable and dyes beautifully, but it can also be more challenging to work with. Fold the fabric into symmetrical eighths, just as we did for the 8-pointed mandalas. Using a washable marker, draw some arcs to define the center shape. 6 inches or so outside these, draw a large half teardrop shape along each crease. Outside the half teardrops, draw a peaked border between the creases. Draw another peaked border further out, facing in the opposite direction. Fold along the line defining the edge of the center shape. With heavy fabrics like this one, extra attention must be paid to keeping the layers from separating. Tie on the shorter, folded line, compressing the fabric with the artificial sinew. Tie the rest of the center area, spacing the ties about 1 to 3 inches apart. Start to fold the first half teardrop from its end nearest the tapestry center. To compensate for the thicker fabric, we're making our even height folds a bit taller than we did for our rayon tapestries. Tie on the folded half teardrop line. Place another tie outside of the shape's outline. Fold the second half teardrop line, starting from its outermost end and working toward the center. Tie on the folded line.
Next, tie between the creases across the outer ends of the half teardrops. Tie between the creases again, this time diagonally between opposite ends of the two shapes. Repeat this from the other direction, so the diagonal ties form an X. You can always add another tie for good measure. Fold along the inner peaked border, using yet taller folds to keep the fabric manageable. You'll find that it takes a little more hand strength to twist and fold fabrics like this canvas. Tie the folded line and reinforce it with a second tie nearby. Fold the final peaked border, tie it, and place another tie nearby. Here's what a folded, tied sun mandala should look like. Let's take one more look at marking, folding, and tying a sun mandala, this time on rayon sheeting. Remember to soak your tied sun mandala in soda ash solution and set it out to dry.
Now let's dye the purple sun. Apply yellow to the entire tied center shape and to each tied half teardrop. Notice how easily the dye is absorbed into the dry, soda ash infused fabric. When both sides of the center shape and teardrops are covered with yellow, apply lines of orange over some of the yellow. Apply red in a similar fashion to the orange. Apply narrower lines of dark red through the red. Repeat this process so both sides of the tied shapes are similarly covered. Apply turquoise next to the tied borders of the three shapes. We put some of our concentrated turquoise in a smaller squeeze bottle so the flow is easier to control. It also sometimes helps to hold or tilt the fabric so colors don't flow in the wrong direction as they're being applied. Apply more turquoise between each remaining set of border ties. Make sure you remember to dye both sides of all the tied borders.
It takes more dye solution to penetrate the layers of thicker fabrics, so adjust the amount of dye you apply according to the type of fabric you're dyeing. Next, we're going to apply purple. Apply the purple to the area between the tied shapes and the first peaked border. We've diluted our concentrated purple by about 1/3 with softened water. You can always dilute your purple or purples far more, depending on the shades you want on your own project. Dye this area so both sides are covered. Also apply purple to the area outside the second peaked border. Tilt the project so no purple crosses the turquoise. Dye the area between peaked borders red. Here we've also diluted our concentrated red dye solution slightly, this time with about 1/4 softened water, in order to stretch it a little further. Apply lines of dark red over the red, and repeat the procedure on the other side. Set the project aside to react. Here's what our finished purple sun will look like after it's been washed out. Let's take a look at some more tapestries that can be created just by changing the colors applied.
Let's try something a bit more intricate. We'll show you how to fold the lotus blossom design, and we'll explore various color combinations as we dye our evening lotus and foxfire variations.
Fold the damp, pre-washed fabric in half, then fold it in half again. Smooth the wrinkles, and fold the top set of layers into eighths. Grasp the newly formed crease and flip the fabric over, folding the remaining layers into eighths on the other side. Split the two sets of layers again, folding the fabric into 16ths, just as we did for the 16-pointed mandalas. What makes the lotus blossom different is simply the way in which we mark, fold, and tie the fabric. Draw a line that zigzags toward the center between the creases. Starting from the line's outermost point, fold along the line toward the center. Don't allow the layers of fabric to separate as you fold them. Pay extra attention to aligning the marker line on the peaks and walls of folds when the line changes direction. As you continue to fold, you may find that you need to maintain pressure on the folded design to keep it from springing apart.
Carefully tie on the folded line and compress the tie slowly to prevent the series of folds from buckling. Tie diagonally between neighboring indentations. These indentations form where the line we folded along changes direction. Tying in this manner stabilizes the design so it won't pull apart as we handle it, and the compression from the extra ties helps make the edges of our design look more defined. Place an additional tie along the outer edge of the lotus blossom outline, and a final tie an inch or two beyond the outline. This is what our tied lotus blossom should look like. Here's another look at the process of marking, folding, and tying a lotus blossom. Soak the tied lotus blossom in soda ash solution for at least 15 minutes, then set it out to dry.
Now we'll create the evening lotus. Our soda ash soaked lotus blossom has had plenty of time to dry. Let's use a diagram to help visualize where the dye we're applying will appear on the finished tapestry. Start by applying a blue you like on the main tied line. This line will form part of the interconnecting outline on our finished tapestry. Apply a line of red to one side of the blue line. In this case, we're applying red to the side with the largest petal. On the other side of the blue line, apply a line of turquoise from the edge of the second largest folded petal. Cover each petal with yellow. Apply stripes of orange to the inside of each petal. Apply smaller stripes of red inside the orange. Flip the project over and apply a matching sequence, so like colors appear in corresponding locations on both sides of the project. Dye the area outside of the lotus with a winding line of weak dilute purple. Apply medium dilute purple over some of the weak purple. Sprinkle on finer droplets of strong dilute purple. Flip the project over and repeat the progression of purple dilutions. Apply progressively less of each dilution as you work from weak to strong. Set the project aside to react. Here's what our finished evening lotus will look like.
Next, we'll create the Foxfire Lotus. Fold the front of the t-shirt into 16ths, just as we did with the tapestry. Mark it with a zigzag line, fold it, and tie it. Soak the tied shirt in soda ash solution, then squeeze out excess solution and allow it to dry. When the shirt is dried, apply a stripe of turquoise on the main tied line. Dye individual petals red, strong dilute purple, green, blue, yellow, and red. Dye part of the red petal dark red, part of the green petal dark green, and part of the yellow petal orange or golden yellow. Dye the area outside the lotus blossom using weak, medium, and strong dilutions of a green you like. Flip the project over and once again apply turquoise, red, dilute purple, green, blue, yellow, orange, dark red, and purple. Then cover the rest of the shirt using dilutions of green. Let's look at examples of more lotus blossoms created just by changing the pitch and curvature of the zigzag guideline and using different color combinations.
Let's take a look at the folding and tying of the Cosmic Rays mandala. Then we'll detail the dye application process for our gravity belt and solar flare designs. Fold the damp, pre-washed fabric into eighths, just as we did for the 8-pointed mandala and sun mandala. Draw the inner border of the rays and the crescent guides for the center mandala. Draw lines a few inches inside of and parallel to each crease. Another line connecting the ray lines completes our 1/8 cosmic rays shape. Extend the connecting line to the creases. Using a different color marker helps us distinguish between the regions of the guideline. Draw a reference arc between the rays further out on the tapestry. Fold and tie on the innermost border of the rays. Then fold and tie the small 8-pointed mandala shape in the center. Fold and tie the line containing the rays connecting line. Tie on the line so the knot is centered over one of the marker line intersections. Leave long tails on the tie. Place a second tie on the line, with the knot centered over the other ray to connecting line intersection. Leave long tails on this tie also.
Fold along one of the crease parallel ray lines. Tie the folded line using the tails from the nearest knot. Fold along the other ray and tie it with the other set of tails. Arrange the arced reference line and its underlying companion layers so it lies along the top of a contoured crease. Tie between the ends of the rays and inside each ray. Then tie across the contours outside the rays. Since the arced reference line isn't marked with a tie, we'll just remember where it is. Place the tied Cosmic Rays mandala in a project box and pour soda ash solution over it until the fabric is completely saturated.
Now we'll create the gravity belt. Our soda ash soaked tapestry has had plenty of time to dry. Apply yellow to the regions which make up the rays, except for the areas near the creases. Apply weak dilute blue-green to the mandala center and next to the crease area of the rays. Add strong dilute turquoise next, and weak dilute turquoise on the creases. Outline the yellow rays with red, overlapping the yellow slightly. Augment the red with narrower stripes of dark red. Augment the yellow with a narrower stripe of golden yellow. Complete the center mandala with stripes of strong dilute purple, strong dilute turquoise, red, and dark red. Locate the contoured crease we arranged along our drawn reference arc and dye it using a medium strength dilution of green. Apply strong dilute purple bordering both sides of the green line. Dye the remaining areas of this side of the tapestry black, with a contour of blue toward the outside edge. Flip the project over and apply the same combination of colors so they appear in corresponding locations on both sides. Set the dyed project aside to react. Here's what our finished gravity belt will look like.
Let's look at dyeing the solar flare. Dye the center of the design turquoise. Next to this, apply red and then turquoise again. Apply blue to the outer edge of the center mandala and outline the rays with stripes of red. Augment the red stripes with narrower stripes of dark red. Apply yellow to the rays area and orange along the edges of the red. Outline the outer red border with turquoise and outline the turquoise with blue. Dye the area between the inner red border and the center mandala black. Apply dilute green following the contoured crease between the rays. Inside the curved green line, apply dilute turquoise, strong dilute purple, and strong dilute turquoise. Outline the green with strong dilute purple and cover the rest of this side of the tapestry with black. Flip the project over and apply the same color combination so colors appear in corresponding locations on both sides of the project. Set the project aside to react. Here is what our finished solar flare tapestry will look like. explored some fantastic folding and dyeing techniques, and your mind is probably already brimming with ideas. Yet we're still only at the very beginning of what's possible. You'll soon find that there are countless patterns that can be produced by using variations of the techniques we've demonstrated.
Getting an idea you've seen in your imagination to manifest itself on fabric is easy, if you can visualize it clearly. When brainstorming new ideas, a paper model will help you visualize different patterns before you commit to them on fabric. Here are some examples of conceptual drawings, and the silk tapestries that were produced from it. After the dye has been applied to our projects, we need to set them aside while the dye reacts and bonds to the fabric. At 70 degrees Fahrenheit, a project should sit for 12 hours. At 60 degrees Fahrenheit, it will need about 18 hours to react.
Temperatures significantly below 60 degrees can be too cold for the dye to completely react, so put your project somewhere warm. If you don't want to wait the standard 12 to 18 hours, cover your project and microwave it until it's hot.
When dyeing silk, heat from microwaving is the necessary catalyst to achieve maximum color saturation. Avoid breathing fumes and steam burns by allowing the project to cool before you handle it.
When the dye has had enough time or heat to react, it's time to cut off the ties and wash it out. The goals of the washout are to solidify the bond between the dye and fabric while washing away excess dye in such a way that no staining occurs. While especially visible in white areas, staining also dulls richly colored areas, so it's well worth trying to avoid.
Start by turning your water heater all the way up, and give the water plenty of time to get hot. Be careful to avoid scalding yourself. Pre-fill the washing machine with hot water, and carefully cut the ties off of your dyed fabric. Allow the machine to begin agitating, and drop the fabric into the machine. If you're washing out a delicate fabric, remember to put it in a mesh bag. Allow the machine to agitate for about 30 seconds, then stop it and set it to drain and spin out.
When the machine finishes spinning, refill it immediately with hot water. When it begins to agitate, add 2 teaspoons Synthropol for a small load, 4 teaspoons for a medium load, and 6 teaspoons for a large load. Then let the washer run through an entire hot-cold cycle.
After the washout, hang the items out to dry or put them in the dryer. It's always best to hang dry delicate fabrics like rayon and silk.
Don't forget to turn your water heater back down when the washout is finished. You'll save on your energy bill and prevent someone from getting scalded.
When your project is dried, wash it again in warm water with vinegar. This will remove any loose dye that remains on the fabric and prevent it from staining when the fabric first comes in contact with perspiration or precipitation. We'll use 1 cup of vinegar for a small load, 1½ cups for a medium load, and 2 cups for a large load.
When your project is dried, it is ready to display or wear. Thank you for watching. We hope the techniques we've shared inspire you and help you in the creation of your own tie-dye designs.
Now that you understand how our methods work, the possibilities are truly endless. Try variations on designs we've shown you. Combine elements from different designs. And develop folds, patterns, and color combinations of your own.
In the course of your exploration of these techniques, we encourage you to expand your palette of powdered dyes. This will magnify your color mixing options significantly.
We also encourage you to explore these techniques on a range of fabrics. Your fabric supplier will provide sample swatches upon request to assist you in making a decision. Our personal favorites are rayon sheeting and silk.
When you make something you really like, be sure to send or email us a picture of your creation. If you have questions about safety, mixing chemicals in dye, what fabrics to use, troubleshooting, and where to obtain the supplies you'll need, watch our comprehensive review after the credits.
Happy tie-dyeing!
It is important to emphasize that when making tie-dye, you will be handling chemicals. The chemicals you will be handling are considered safe for home use when handled properly. They are generally considered safer than common household products such as drain cleaner, oven cleaner, pesticides, and bleach. However, when handling any chemicals, it is important to handle them all with the utmost care.
Don't eat, drink, or smoke in the presence of dyes and other chemicals. Never use kitchen utensils or appliances for the tie-dyeing process, unless they will be permanently retired from use in food preparation and consumption. Always store dye and other chemicals in a safe location, out of the reach of pets and small children. Safety gear is essential and should be worn every time we handle any dye or chemical.
You will need gloves, a dust mask, goggles or safety glasses, an apron, a chemical material safety data sheet, some clothing you will use only for tie-dyeing, and a pair of rubber-soled shoes.
Obtain the Material Safety Data Sheet, or MSDS, for each chemical you purchase, which will explain specific risks involved and what to do in the case of an emergency. We're going to use Procyon MX fiber reactive dye.
Procyon MX dyes can be used in all cellulose fibers, such as cotton, rayon, and hemp. Procyon MX can also be used with silk, even though it's a protein fiber.
Petroleum-based synthetic fibers, such as nylon, polyester, and acrylic, cannot be dyed using Procyon MX.
For dye, you will need 2 ounces to 1 pound each of fuchsia red MX8B, yellow MX8G, turquoise MXG, cobalt blue MX2G, and black MXCWNA, or whichever black your supplier says is the darkest. You will need a pound or more of a chemical water softener unless you have a reverse osmosis softener. You will also need 1 to 5 pounds of urea, powdered kelp, 1 to 5 pounds of soda ash, 1 pint to 1 quart of synthropol, non-iodized salt, and vinegar.
Everything we're using can be safely disposed of down the drain, regardless of if you're connected to a septic system or a city sewer.
You'll want to dilute anything you pour down the drain with water. Only mix chemicals and dye outside or in an extremely well ventilated area.
To make our dye premix solution, we're going to dissolve urea in really hot water. So make sure your water heater is turned up and give the water adequate time to get hot. Add 2 teaspoons water softener, 1 teaspoon kelp, and 2 cups urea to 1/2 gallon of hot water.
Put the cap on the jug and shake it until everything is dissolved.
Although we need the water very hot to dissolve urea, the premix solution needs to cool to room temperature before we add our dye powders. Mixing dye powders into a hot solution will weaken them substantially.
Whenever you dilute a color solution, use only softened water. Add 2 teaspoons water softener to 1/2 gallon of warm water.
Put the cap on the jug and shake until the water softener is dissolved. The next chemical we need is soda ash. Its chemical name is sodium carbonate. Soda ash is also referred to as fixer. Its purpose is to shift the pH of the dye reaction from neutral to basic, creating optimal conditions for the dye to bond with the fiber.
Add 4 teaspoons water softener, 1 cup soda ash to 1 gallon warm water. Stir with your whisk until soda ash and water softener is completely dissolved. Soda ash and dye should not come into contact with each other until the dye is being applied to the fabric. Never mix soda ash powder or solutions with dye powder or solutions. When dissolving water softener, urea, or soda ash in water, always mix the dry or powdered chemical into water. Never attempt to dissolve by adding water to dry soda ash, water softener, or urea.
While we give our dye premix solution a bit more time to cool, we can wash the fabric we're going to dye to prepare it for folding and tying. If you're confident you can dye your fabric without scouring it, pre-fill your washing machine with cold water. Add 1/2 cup water softener for a small load, 3/4 cup for a medium load, and 1 cup for large loads. Let the machine agitate until the water softener dissolves. Then add your fabric to the machine. If you're pre-washing a delicate fabric, don't forget to put it in a mesh bag. Allow the machine to agitate fully and spin it out manually without giving it a chance to refill. Now your fabric is ready to fold.
If you do suspect that your fabric might have additives or finishes applied to it, or if you're dyeing silk, you'll want to scour it. Before you begin scouring, make sure your water heater is turned up. Pre-fill your washing machine with hot water. Add water softener in the same amounts we used for a regular pre-wash, plus 1 teaspoon synthropol and 1 teaspoon soda ash for every yard of fabric you'll be scouring. 2 t-shirts is about 1 yard.
Put your fabric into the washing machine and allow the machine to run through an entire hot-cold cycle. Don't forget to add more water softener to the washing machine after it fills up for the last time. When the machine finishes, your fabric is scoured and ready to fold. The first color we are going to mix is lemon, yellow MX8G. Add 2 tablespoons of the dye powder to the premixed solution and shake it vigorously until all of the dye powder is completely dissolved.
To mix the fuchsia, red MX8G, add 2 tablespoons of dye powder to the premixed solution and shake it until all of the dye powder is dissolved.
To mix turquoise, MXG, add 3½ tablespoons of dye powder to the premixed solution. Put the lid on and shake it until all the dye powder is dissolved. To mix cobalt, blue MX2G, add 3 tablespoons of dye powder to the premixed solution. Close the lid and shake vigorously.
For black MXCWNA, add 4½ tablespoons and 2 tablespoons non-iodized salt to the premixed solution. Close the lid and shake vigorously.
If any of your dye concentrate solutions won't dissolve completely, you can add up to 10% softened water to help them dissolve. Now that we've finished mixing our dye concentrates, we can apply them to the fabric directly, use them to mix other colors, or dilute them to lighter shades.
Whenever you dilute a color solution, use only softened water. Never dilute with dye premixed solution. Diluting with dye premixed solution is not advised since this alters the ratio of urea to powdered dye, which we've already carefully established.
Never dilute a color with soda ash solution. Dye exposed to soda ash will become inactive in a few hours.
If you have leftover dye solution, which you would like to use later, fill a cooler with some ice to keep them cool. A small refrigerator will also work and will keep you from having to buy ice.
At room temperature, dye solutions begin to lose strength after only 3 hours. If we store them in a cooler, on ice, or in a refrigerator, they can be stored and used for 2 weeks or more.
Before you start pouring any soda ash solution down the drain, keep in mind that it can be stored indefinitely. So if you're planning on tie-dyeing again, you can store it in a closed container. A microwave is also useful because it accelerates the dye reaction. Rather than having to let your project sit overnight and wait to wash it out, you can have it ready in a few minutes.
When you microwave a project, place it in a plastic container or a plastic bag to keep moisture from escaping. If too much moisture escapes, dry fabric will scorch and burn. A covered t-shirt can be microwaved for about 3 to 5 minutes on a high setting.
Microwaving silk dyed with Procian MX dyes sets the dye, resulting in bright, vibrant color.
It is not safe to use a cooler, refrigerator, or microwave for food preparation or storage after it has come into contact with dye and chemicals.
Our website, www.truetiedye.com, also has all of the resources on where to get dye, chemicals, supplies, white clothing, and fabrics.